We're not supposed to talk about politics with other people, right? We're not
in
supposed
polite company, right?
Yeah, in polite company, because that's not okay. The problem with political conversations is that if it's that left versus right box, the conversations always have this subtext of, and maybe they don't realize it, but the subtext of every left-right political conversation is, I want my will imposed on you like this.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Right.
exactly it. Yeah.
And that makes people very uncomfortable. And they get even more uncomfortable when you take the subtext of that conversation, like, coming from the libertarian philosophy, you take the subtext of that conversation and you bring it up to the surface for everybody to see and everybody to evaluate. And you say, are you willing to use force on me? And that really upsets people.
They try to come up with excuses. They try to say, well, we do this. We do this.
We're part of a society.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you an example. I don't know if I told you about this one, Brett, but I was coming back from England in April. Actually, it was April 1st, and I was at the World Horror Convention in Brighton and coming back through Heathrow. And I sat down near my gate, and a guy sat next to me, and he had his passport, opened it up. Inside was the Constitution. I said, you have the Constitution inside there. Now, again, I'm a guy who will remind the politicians about the Constitution, who will remind the Tea Party people about the Constitution, because the politicians are the ones who are hypocrites while they swear an oath to abide by it, and they don't care. But I would go further into a stateless society. But anyway, I said, I've been reading a book about how, they always find ways to get around the Constitution. And the man was a naturalized citizen. I don't know where exactly he came from, but he was an immigrant. He had moved here and gone through all the stupid hoops that they've set up to become an American citizen. And so he starts talking about how great it is that they've got this fascist healthcare thing, as I would describe it, the fascist medicine thing that they've imposed. And he's like, the health insurance plan is very important. So I tried to explain to him the causes of increases in health insurance policies and the causes of, over-demand Medicare, Medicaid, and things like that, and what's going to happen and what happened in Canada because they had to impose price controls and they're going to do all sorts of rationing and things like that. He's not listening. He thinks it's just a great idea. He thinks it's awesome. So I said, listen, I can tell that no matter what I'm saying to you, I'm just not convincing you. Let me just ask you a question. Let's say you think you've got a great idea, and you want to go ahead with it. If I said to you, hey, you know what, dude, you go ahead. You have a great time, and could you just leave me out of it? I just want to be left alone. Mm-hmm. Would you force me? And he hemmed and he hawed, and he says, well, we do this, we do that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, just this question. I'm just asking from one person to another, would you force me? And he got very upset after a while. I was like, you're not answering my question. It's yes or no. Would you force me to do this, to pay, to conform? I just want to be left alone. I'm not hurting anyone. I just want to be left alone. He goes, finally says, yes, I would force you. So I said, and he goes, you know what? You're just righteous about this. You're religious about this. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Leave me alone.
Leave me alone so I don't have to think about what I'm supporting.
Exactly.
The force, the aggression, yeah.
Yeah, I said to him, I said, did you hear what you just said? And he looked at me and I said, I'm just verbalizing thoughts to you through the air. You want to affect my life through government force and possibly imprison me or take my livelihood if I don't conform to what you want, and you're telling me to leave you alone?
Isn't that funny how the sound of somebody being defensive and evasive about your questions sounds very similar to that sound of their entire political belief system imploding in front of their eyes?
Yeah, great. Boy, you said it well, man. Absolutely, Brett.
Yeah,
That's great, man.
Maybe you planted the seed that would eventually grow into the giant beanstalk that sends their political philosophy crumbling down.
I have a feeling he probably wrote another check to the DNC or RNC after that one because,
The mental gymnastics that people do to just not have to think about what's actually going on. I mean, it's so funny because you grow up, you go through life, and so much of this stuff is just invisible to you. Nobody brings it to the forefront. Nobody says the things that are really going on. Nobody, makes that subtext explicit,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
and when somebody does that, it's just like, the record screeches to a halt and all these glasses drop, and it's like, what just happened?
And what do you guys?
But it's so important.
What do you think also about the there is a very strange sentimental subtext to a lot of what we observe in the popular media and in schools, and even in town holidays, parades and all these things, where it's the we the people thing, and we're constantly thrown these crises. We heard Hillary Clinton and numerous people have said, never squander a good crisis.
Indeed.
And so we've got the so-called war on terror. And we know that there are a lot of conspiracy people out there who say, well, that was all set up, because they want to have the world's government and all that. And I'm like, okay, fine. Well, you know what? If you think so, that's fine. But I think that anyway, we've got a call, so we'll get right over to it.
Finish your thought, Gard. No problem.
It seems to me that a lot of this so-called bonding that occurs because of the crises that government throws at us and the straw dog enemies that they throw out at us. And whether it's the war on drugs, we've got to stop the Mexican immigrants. We have to fight the so-called war on terror,
or the bird flu, or the swine flu, or whatever.
All that
disease.
Oh my God! And look at, for example, just real quick, look at what the Obama administration did about mortgages. We know that the next phase of release for mortgage statistics is going to come out about 2 or 3 days before the November elections. So what does the Obama administration do with the Justice Department? They start getting on the backs of banks and getting assistance from people like Bank of America, which, of course, got a bunch of money from the feds, to stop foreclosures for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
Well, what's that going to do to the foreclosure statistics? It's going to make them go down.
Right. So it makes them look better.
There's a crisis in illegal foreclosures. Oh, really? You know what? Yeah, sure, right. It's bogus. The whole thing is bogus. It's all a big. I mean, I feel like I'm living in Orwellian land.
Yeah.